Good evening, everyone. It is 7:30 on a Wednesday evening at the end of March, and welcome to the Boxing Gossip live stream. Thanks very much to everyone who watches live. Thanks very much to everyone who watches this when it's uploaded to YouTube. It will go up about half an hour after I finish recording. So yeah, first and foremost, thanks very much to everyone who takes the time to watch this. Thanks very much to everyone who takes the time to hit the thumbs up button and to subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate the support. Let me just have a double check to see that the stream has gone live. It certainly has. We've got YouTube, Nur, and Terence in the chat already. Quite a terrifying group of YouTubers. I assume most of the conversation will be surrounding Amir Khan and whether he's the best ever, with those three in the chat. But yeah, if you're watching, guys, if you're joining, do say hello. Do write in the chat. Let us know who you are, where you are, etc. Always good to get some dialogue going. Now, as always with these live streams, there is also the option for anyone viewing to call in, and that invite goes out to people who have called in before. It goes out to people who have not called in before. And if you're new, very, very simple. Add me on Skype, boxing.gossip. You can call in and we'll get you straight away on there. I personally feel that the shows are more entertaining when there's a bit of conversation, bit of back and forth, rather than me just ranting at the camera. So yeah, if you would like to have a chat, if you would like to voice some opinions, ask any questions, whatever, do get involved, and we'll go from there. So the way it's going to work today, I want to talk about the David Haye press conference today. I want to talk about the opponent. The opponent, we're going to go by the name of Arnold Gjergjaj. That may not be correct, but it's how I've heard it pronounced in the past, and it's what I'm going to run with, because, you know, Gjergjaj I can just about pronounce. Anything else is going to be too complicated. I want to talk about Shannon Briggs and his Let's Go Champ entrance, which, whilst being predictable, I thought was very, very entertaining. But that's potentially slightly immature. And apart from that, I want to open it up, you know, as always with these live shows. You know, I want to discuss the topics in hand, but not too rigid, not too rigid. You know, if anyone wants to suggest a different topic in the chat, or if anyone wants to call in and ask about something else, then we can most certainly discuss it, as long as it's boxing related. Otherwise, it will probably be boring to everyone else tuning in. So, yeah, that's how we're going to go here. Let me start by giving a bit of a breakdown from myself. I want to talk about my thoughts about this fight. I want to talk about Arnold Gjergjaj personally, before we throw open Skype. Not that I'm expecting a deluge of Skype callers, but I just want to make sure I've got a few moments to put down my thoughts. So when I heard it was Arnold Gjergjaj, I'm going to be honest, I had heard the name. I had been aware of him previously. I'm not going to pretend that I was somebody who'd followed his career, but you guys know I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to the heavyweight division, and I follow it quite closely. And I had heard of the name, just like I'd heard of Mark Demori. I knew that Gjergjaj was big, I knew that he was European, and I knew that he was unbeaten. I also knew that he'd had some pretty high-class sparring. I think it transpires that he sparred with Fury, Klitschko, Cobra, and more. So yeah, I was aware of that. Now, I looked at his record on BoxRec. He is 29-0, with 21 of those 29 wins coming by way of KO. So the record suggests he's a guy with a level of power, although I'm going to dispute that in a minute, not to spoil the surprise too much. In terms of names, there's no one on his record who you could say was a top 50 heavyweight. there doesn't really appear to be anyone on his record that you would say would be a fellow prospect who he's fought maybe at a similar time on the way up. It's more journeyman. You know, the boxing scene in Switzerland, where he's based, isn't too hot, and the majority of the opponents that he's been in with are Swiss-based heavyweights. So, to be honest, they're not guys who I have been overly aware of. They're not guys who I've followed. But the one name that does spring out is Dennis Back-Tolf. You know, Dennis Back-Tolf, I guess, is a fairly regular player in the heavyweight scene. He's a sort of better known journeyman, I guess you could say. We've seen him in a number of fights against bigger named heavyweights. UK fans may remember that he fought Anthony Joshua. And I believe before the Dillian White fight, he was the guy who maybe took Anthony Joshua the longest. I think he might have went 4 rounds. So, you know, Dennis Back-Tolf, I guess, is the most recognisable name. Now, first and foremost, I watched a YouTube video which said something like Arnold Gjergjaj the Cobra. And it is funny that David Haye's calling him Arnold the Cobra. They obviously thought about this behind the scenes, and they thought there's no point us trying to market him as Gjergjaj or Gjergjaj or whatever. They just thought, let's go for Arnold the Cobra. So, yeah, I thought that was quite funny. But the first thing I did is watch a highlight video of Arnold the Cobra. And very quickly, even though this is a highlight video of him knocking opponents out left, right, and centre, you get a clear picture as to what sort of level this guy has been operating at. To be honest, some of the fights he's been in, I've seen bigger crowds outside the car park in a local pub watching a fight after hours. You know, we're talking about small rings that appear to be in gyms, in leisure centres, you know, in that sort of environment. The guy has been not fighting on the big stage. I know, don't get me wrong, obviously when he fought Dennis Back-Tolf, maybe some of his more recent fights, he's fought in more middle-sized arenas. You know, I'm not saying he's just been fighting in his mum's back room for his entire career, but this is a guy who has been fighting at much less heralded venues or much less heralded events than he's going to have to experience when he steps in to fight David Haye in May at the O2 Arena. You know, that's going to be new to him. That's going to be something he hasn't faced before. The other thing that struck me immediately was watching a highlight clip of all of these knockouts was the size of his opponents. You know, very, very regularly, he had a substantial size difference over his opponents, to the point where, quite frankly, I was actually surprised that the opponents he was in with were classed as heavyweights. Because, you know, Gjergjaj is a big enough guy, but he's hardly a Tyson Fury or an Anthony Joshua in terms of his size. I think he's about 6'4". He's about 240 pounds. But these guys he was in with, you know, I don't know who they were. They were obviously from back in his resume. But, you know, Gjergjaj was absolutely towering over them. They looked like light heavyweights in there next to him. So, yeah, I mean, that was something that struck me watching his knockout highlight reel, is that the events he's been fighting at are very, very small. The opponents he's been fighting against are also very, very small, which possibly creates a flattering resume in terms of his KO percentage. And for me, that was highlighted by 2 facts. One, he went the distance with Dennis Back-Tolf, and I'm going to come on to that fight in more detail in a minute. You know, Dennis Back-Tolf is a guy who can be stopped. You know, he was stopped by Anthony Joshua early on, as I said, but Gjergjaj went the distance with Dennis Back-Tolf. More interestingly than that, he also went the distance with, now I'm not going to remember the guy's name here, unfortunately, but he went the distance with a rather small heavyweight with an unfortunate tattoo on his face, who fought on the Nick Blackwell Chris Eubank Jr. undercard this week, and who was stopped in a single round by a Brighton-based heavyweight prospect. So the Brighton-based heavyweight prospect, whose name slips my mind at this particular time, who was on his 5th pro fight, stopped this guy in 1 round. Yet Gjergjaj, who would have been on his 25th fight or something of that nature, actually went the distance with this character. So I thought potentially, you know, this was the definition of a padded record. You know, his knockout ratio really flattered what was there. And when you watch the way he knocks out opponents, often it is with big hooks, you know, left, right, quite wide, slow hooks. And to be honest, he's such a bigger man than the opponents he's in with. More often than not, it's more just the force of the punch that's, it's not that he's connecting on their face, it's more that he's hitting a high guard and he's just going left, right, and he's so much bigger and stronger than his opponents that they're pretty much falling over. I'm just having Mr. Hates in the chat, says Zoltan Ksala is the heavyweight with the tattoo. Thanks very much, Mr. H. Yeah, you're right. And he was stopped in one round by a Brighton-based heavyweight on his 5th pro fight, and that guy went the distance with Gjergjaj. So for me, when I was looking at the way he was knocking an opponent's out, he didn't, you know, he wasn't like leveling them, he wasn't connecting cleanly, he wasn't picking lovely punches. It was literally just sort of wearing them down by being a bigger, stronger man. And for me, that really means that his KO percentage is not reflective of a similar KO percentage on the UK scene, let's put it that way. Now, having watched his highlight reel, I was unimpressed. To me, he looked very wide, quite sloppy, not very technical, and just a bit of a brawler rather than anything else, which didn't correspond with the chat that David Haye was giving it. David Haye said he liked the look of his opponent because of his fast hands and fast feet, and the fact that he could punch and move at the same time. You know, and the fact he was so big. So I was expecting from David Haye's definition to see a heavyweight who was much smarter than what I saw on tape when I was watching Arnold Gjergjaj. I was expecting a heavyweight whose punches had a bit more snap and whose punches were delivered with a bit more technique. But I thought I'll give Arnold Gjergjaj some slack here. I thought I'll go on to the Dennis Back-Tolf fight, which is a much more recent fight. And I will take a look at how Gjergjaj has developed and how he's fighting these days when he fought Dennis Back-Tolf. And speaking frankly, I couldn't believe my eyes. You know, anyone who wants to analyse this fight, anyone who wants to make a prediction video as to how this fight is going to go, the key piece of form that you guys need to watch are the early rounds of the Dennis Back-Tolf fight, because this guy is poor beyond belief. Dennis Back-Tolf was looking like Mike Tyson in there. Dennis Back-Tolf was causing this guy all sorts of problems with the fact that Back-Tolf was even had the capability of getting low and, you know, giving him a bit of an angle. Back-Tolf appeared to my eye in the early rounds of the fight, Back-Tolf appeared to have a definite foot speed advantage, a definite hand speed advantage, a definite power advantage, and he was bullying Gjergjaj. He was pushing him all over the ring. He was forcing the pace. He was pushing him back to the ropes. Gjergjaj didn't really look like he could know what to do with Dennis Back-Tolf. You know, Back-Tolf was sort of forcing him back into the ropes, you know, unloading barrages of punches to Gjergjaj. You know, we were seeing 8-punch combinations going in from Dennis Back-Tolf, who appeared to be the far more explosive puncher in there than Gjergjaj. I mean, this Gjergjaj, who was obviously a substantially taller man, an unbeaten guy, you would expect for him to have developed a ramrod jab, which would be hitting Back-Tolf in the head, forcing him outside and keeping him at range. But Gjergjaj could do nothing to keep Back-Tolf at range. And this culminated in what I would describe as a fairly heavy knockdown in the 5th round of the fight, where Dennis Back-Tolf knocked Gjergjaj clean off his feet, and it was a heavy knockdown. And to be honest, Back-Tolf, in the context of the heavyweight division, is not a puncher. He's not even an above average puncher. You know, he's a very average puncher. And if you contrasted Back-Tolf with David Haye in terms of punching power, we would be talking absolute night and day. Now, David Haye said in an interview he didn't want an opponent who'd been knocked out before. You know, he didn't want someone who was going to be easy to knock out. Now, if that's true, David Haye obviously has not availed himself of the Dennis Back-Tolf fight, because whether an opponent has been knocked out or not is one thing, but this opponent was knocked down heavily and aggressively by a journeyman level opponent who, from my perspective, was dominating the early rounds and making Arnold Gjergjaj look very, very average and pretty basic indeed in there. You know, just from my perspective, you know, Gjergjaj seemed to have very, very limited tools. And what is perhaps worse was the openness of Arnold Gjergjaj's defense. It was actually frighteningly open. You know, obviously Back-Tolf was pushing him back, being a shorter man, strong, stocky build, trying to get him into the ropes and unload with close punches. You know, we expect that. We expect what you know, what Back-Tolf was doing. But some of the punches he was landing clean on Gjergjaj. We're talking about Dennis Back-Tolf leading with a hook from 6 foot away. Believe it or not, I mean, rewatch the tapes. You know, it's on YouTube. It's here on YouTube. Here online, is the way I would say. But we're talking about Dennis Back-Tolf having so little fear of Arnold Gjergjaj's jab, and so little fear of going back his way, that he is able to lunge in, leading with a power punch from 6 foot away. And what makes it more terrifying is Arnold Gjergjaj just ate the punch straight on his chin. I mean, this punch was so slow and so telegraphed and so wide that, to be honest, you'd back your grandmother to move her head out of the way. You know, it was that basic. But no, it landed clean on Gjergjaj's chin. And the problem with Gjergjaj is he's very upright. He has very limited head movement. But even more basically than that, he just doesn't put his hands in front of his chin. You know, we're talking about a guy who fights with his hands low, chin up in the air, with no head movement. You know, this really is a mismatch. I've got to say, this is actually a far worse fight than the Mark Demori fight. I would pick Mark Demori to knock Arnold Gjergjaj out. You know, I really would. Let me tell you who else. I would pick Shannon Briggs to knock out Arnold Gjergjaj in a single round with Briggs's power and Gjergjaj's lack of defense. I would pick Hughie Fury to school Gjergjaj. I would probably pick Gary Cornish to beat Gjergjaj. I would pick Dave Allen to beat Gjergjaj. He is basic as hell. Don't let the unbeaten record, don't let the size fool you. This guy has done nothing in his professional career. And even when he stepped up to the level of a Dennis Back-Tolf, he's been terribly exposed, beaten and bullied over the ring, and been terribly, terribly dropped. What does this guy have to beat David Haye? I mean, if you listen to David Haye, you're thinking that Gjergjaj is going to be dancing around the ring like Muhammad Ali, shooting a jab like Vladimir Klitschko. I mean, this guy has literally nothing. He has no way of keeping David Haye off and no awareness of his defense whatsoever. I believe that David Haye could end this fight in the very, very first round. The only reason I'd be slightly hesitant about predicting a first round knockout is twofold. Firstly, because David Haye may not want to end the fight in the first round. After what happened with Mark Demori, he may want to give the fans more value. Secondly, because Haye sometimes is a bit of a slow starter. Sometimes against taller guys, he's a little bit more hesitant. We've seen it time and time again. Vladimir Valiev, even Audley, you know, he kind of doesn't do much the first round or two. He has a look at that. So, yeah, I think David Haye ends the fight whenever he wants. You know, if Back-Tolf can drop this guy, Haye certainly can drop this guy. If Back-Tolf can hit this guy, Haye can certainly do it. If Back-Tolf can close the distance and get inside the jab, Haye can certainly do it. The advantage in power, speed, technique, athletic ability, and defense is going to be so vast. It's going to be so vast. I don't think this guy is as well schooled as Mark Demori. I don't think this guy has as much to offer as Mark Demori. I got to say it. I got to say it. This is a very, very one-sided fight for me. And Gjergjaj really has nothing to bring to the table here. You know, I'm sorry to be negative on a fight. I'm sorry to go in as strong as I'm going in. But I have to speak my mind. I have to say my thoughts. And this is how I'm seeing it here. This is going to be a very, very one-sided destruction. And, you know, Shannon Briggs, he came in. It appeared to be ludicrously staged. I mean, he turned up with Kugan Cassius, for example. You'd have to assume that Kugan Cassius asked David Haye's permission before revealing the location of the press conference. You know, Shannon Briggs decided politely to resist his outburst until after David Haye had done his speech and Gjergjaj had done his speech. You know, it all seemed to be very, very scripted. But Shannon Briggs did make one good point, which is like, why are you fighting this guy? You know, who is he? We've never heard of him. And Shannon Briggs said, I could knock him out right here, right now. And I actually believe he could. You know, Shannon Briggs is a far superior fighter to Arnold Gjergjaj. And Gjergjaj would be yet another first-round knockout on Shannon Briggs' resume if they ever did fight. You know, David Haye was saying to Shannon Briggs that Shannon Briggs should fight on his undercard. But we're not really being realistic here. We're not really being realistic, are we? Because let's face it, David Haye, as a self-promoted fighter, cannot afford to bring in the opponents. He cannot afford to be bringing in a Malik Scott. He cannot afford to be bringing in a Shannon Briggs. He's got no broadcaster. You know, he's got no promoter behind him. At the end of the day, the reason we're seeing opponents like Demori and Gjergjaj is because they're cheap. You know, I don't know how much Gjergjaj's getting, but I speculate that it would be between 5 and 20% of what Shannon Briggs would require for a fight like that. You know, that's my perspective here. I think Gjergjaj has been selected because he's cheap. And you know, with that in mind, with the sort of low quality undercards that seem to be associated with David Haye's events, because they're also cheap, you have to wonder how is David Haye suddenly going to afford not only to pay Shannon Briggs, but also to pay an opponent to fight on his undercard. I mean, I'm sure David Haye would make Shannon Briggs an offer. It'd be good to have him on the undercard, but I would assume that the offer would be so derisory that Shannon Briggs, who's clearly looking for a payday, won't end up fighting on his undercard for that purpose anyway. But anyway, guys, there we are. I think I've given you my thoughts. 24 minutes there of me ranting about this fight. You know, it's I want to know your thoughts now. I'm going to get Skype up and running. Just bear with me for 2 seconds, just in case anyone wants to call in. If you're watching live, it says there's about 45 people watching, and you want to call in, do add me on Skype. Just boxing.gossip. You can call in. If so, we will get you live straight away. We'll get you on air as soon as you call in. So I'm just having a look now. I've actually got a few new people who've added me on Skype. So I'm just going to accept those right now. Those are accepted. So if anyone wants to call in to discuss, please do. Skype is now up and running. Other than that, we will go into the comments. But let me know your thoughts on what I've just said if you've been watching live. You know, is this a fight that excites you? Has anyone else seen anything of Gjergjaj? Am I being harsh on him? Does he have any redeeming characteristics? And if you are one of the 40 or so people watching, please do give me the thumbs up. Help me spread this to a wider audience. Please do subscribe to the channel. That will mean I'll get more callers, you know, coming through and make the shows more entertaining. Team Grove says, watching Gjergjaj versus Back-Tolf really is funny. It's crazy. I recommend anyone who hasn't seen it, take 5 minutes. You don't even need to really watch the whole fight, you know, just take a few minutes and you're gonna see enough straight away. Bullet Truth, in the Briggs Hearn interview, Hearn says Haye can't afford Briggs. Correct. You know, not being self-promoted is hard. YouTube, Shane McGuigan said the same thing about Demori. Gjergjaj has big head, big hands, and KO people. Yeah, I heard Shane McGuigan say that about a few people today. He's got a big head and big hands. I don't know since when that's been the, you know, the hallmark of a successful boxer. JD says one thing about Haye is he's a good businessman. You know, potentially. Amigon says he's got boxing gossip versus Haye for summer pay-per-view, as it's a better fight than what Haye has given his fans. Well, you know, I would I'd make a better job of running than Maury at least. So you never know. In reality, what has Haye ever done at heavyweight? His best wins are Value and Chisora. YouTube says Gossett would slip and move and maybe lost 3 rounds. Very charitable. Carl Goodwin says Joshua smashed Back-Tolf in 2 and Back-Tolf dropped this guy. What is Haye playing at? Good comment. Archie Balls says, why doesn't Haye just sign with Hearn if he can't afford to bring good guys over? Otherwise, he'll be fighting bums to doomsday. The thing is maybe his, you know, how much would David Haye get for fighting on an Eddie Hearn card, fighting an opponent of this nature? Maybe he's actually making more money promoting it himself. Bullet Truth says Haye should swallow his pride and get a promoter. Callum's just joined. Evening, Callum. Amigon says he's always been like that. Even when he was a cruiser, he promoted a lot of his fights. Carl says, is Haye signing up with a promoter the only way he can get a title shot? No money. How could he get himself a chance? When he could fight on a rival promoter's show without signing with them. So, for example, he could fight on an Eddie Hearn show for Joshua Haye. And Eddie Hearn may be inclined to make that fight because he'll think that Joshua can win and the money in it is so large. Klaus has joined. Hello, Klaus. Better by far says Wilder versus Povetkin, Parker, that Cam Haye versus Unknown. Best weekend of heavyweight boxing. Titus says, surely it's better to have a small head. Callum said, I'm really worried about Parker as a huge Joseph Parker fan. Takam is no joke. Yeah, Takam is no joke. That's a real tough fight, that is. Gal says, Haye's a con man, don't know about businessman. Archie Ball says it's Gjergjaj Binks, boxing gossip. YouTube says, if Parker wants to be world level and world champion, he must pass the Takam test. Callum says, yeah, but the step up is too big. I agree that, you know, the step up is, you know, you could have had an in-between fight with a top 20 opponent or something of that nature before this. Better by far says Parker winning on points is a statement to the division. Callum says Bergman to Cam, what is management doing? Adrian asked me if Gjergjaj is highly rated. He's not highly rated at all. No, not with any of the governing bodies. Carl says Parker could get beaten by Cam if he continues to have his hands down and chin in the air. Bullet Truth says Conor Benn for his debut. Are you excited? Not overly excited, no. No, I haven't seen anything to make me excited yet. I'll certainly watch and see how he gets on. Big says, when you're making Back-Tolf look like Mike Tyson, it's time to hang him up. And seriously, he was making him look like Mike Tyson the way Back-Tolf was dealing with him. You know, check it out, guys, if you haven't already. And YouTube says, yeah, I thought Parker's people wasted the December date. Mr. H says he thinks that the Cobra is ranked 35 in the WBC. And the WBC rates anyone. I mean, this is an organization that had Eric Molina and Johan Lepar towards the top of their rating. So the fact that Gjergjaj is that low tells you all you need to know. Carl says, nice gesture from Haye, giving 10% of the tickets to Blackwell. Look, that is a nice gesture. Look, I've got to be cynical when it comes to David Haye, and I'm sorry if this is an unsavory thing to say, but David Haye just strikes me as an individual who does things for the sake of his own celebrity and publicity. You know, for example, on YouTube, he's doing this big campaign, sorry, not on YouTube, on Twitter, to get Muhammad Ali a knighthood. And I always look at that and think, does he want to get Muhammad Ali a knighthood? Or is it just a way of getting his own name in the press that he's involved with the campaign? And it's the same here again. You know, the Nick Blackwell story at present is the biggest story in boxing. It's making the news. You know, it's on daytime TV. It's on all the chat shows. Is David Haye just trying to get a call out to help promote his name and his fight? But regardless, the end result is 10% to Nick Blackwell, which is very, very nice. Do you think Briggs will even pass the medical gossip? I don't see why not. Isn't he had half a dozen fights since he fought Klitschko, and you know he's looked good in them at times. Adrian says, cheers. It's a pointless fight. Team Grove says, have you seen the Sikh who's boxing on the card? He was on the poster. I haven't, no. Cyril said, Haye didn't seem sympathetic at all to Blackwell. Gaz says, what are you making of Eubank Jr.? Look, I did a video on Eubank Jr. the other day, and I must admit, I got absolutely destroyed in the comments. It was the most negative you know, most negative response I've ever had to one of my videos. Actually, I had a long-term subscriber call me an effing idiot, which was fun. So, you know, my view on Eubank Jr. is he is a very, very dangerous fighter when allowed to dominate, when allowed to set his feet. But I have real concerns about how he's going to deal with a boxer, how he's going to deal with someone moving, how he's going to deal with someone with a jab. And I'm unconvinced about him until I see him get through that. Callum says, any tips this weekend? I'm nearly tempted for Fearfane at 10-1. Browne throws 5 punches in a round. Do you know what? Nothing has immediately jumped out at me, but I will have a look and do a video, certainly. Bullet Truth says, I have a signed Haye glove. I'm a big fan, but I won't kiss his ass. I'm a big David Haye fan as well. David Haye is a unique character. He's a great fighter to watch. He's a stylistically entertaining fighter. And at his best, he brings something to the division that you don't see too regularly. Mr. Cutsy says he's a snake. Bettify Fart says, long year for Parker, and have you ever been to Samoa? It's draining, hot and dry. Anytime bro says Parker beating Takam on points is not a statement. Takam would get KO'd by 10 heavyweights. Jamie says Haye does love the publicity. Team Grove says even if Haye is donating 10% to Blackwell for the press, it's still great to see. Nick deserves a bigger purse for the effort he put in. A true inspiration. Correct. And I understand there's a crowdfunding campaign being managed by other matches. So hopefully Nick Blackwell, you know, when he wakes, we hope he does. Hopefully, I'm sure there'll be multiple worries and multiple stresses in his life. Hopefully, one of them won't be financial. Bullet Truth says Briggs is licensed. Briggs has passed his medical, not with the British Boxing Board of Control, I don't believe. YouTube says your line of questioning isn't conductive. I think he's talking to that now famous Eubank interview. Carl says Haye is a great manipulator of situations. Can't deny. Matt Berry says, if Takam was a huge puncher, I'd be much more worried. Still a risky fight, but Park has a good chin, so I'm confident of the win. He must improve his defence, though. And Callum says, who are you rating his chin on? Sherman Williams. So there's a lot of Joseph Parker talk today in the chat. You know, the good news with that fight is that after a substantial delay, it has been signed. It has been sealed. I think it's in Auckland in May. Do you know what? I was actually slightly disappointed to hear it's in New Zealand. I quite like the idea of Joseph Parker fighting internationally, be that in America, be that in Europe. I thought it would have been a good experience for him. I'm not sure that continuing to base himself in New Zealand, you know, from what to my eye seems like uninspiring purses is a great thing. You know, Hatman did a good video the other day. He was saying that, you know, if this fight is the biggest fight in New Zealand ever financially, only just break the $1 million mark, New Zealand dollars, that is, you know, that shows how small the market there is compared to what we've got in the UK at present. And I think for Parker to become a superstar financially and otherwise, he needs to expand his horizons. Mark Broughton said, if a gorilla fought a meerkat, who would win? I used to know Mark Broughton in a previous life, so I'm wondering if that's him. Is that you, Mark? I think a gorilla would beat a meerkat. YouTube says, hope Parker wins. Better by far says Parker has never been dropped or rocked in a long amateur career. I think he does have a chin. Cyril says Parker's the man. Callum says his promoter says it's the last in New Zealand. Bullet Truth says, off topic, is Lucas Browne innocent? Boxing gossip. It would certainly appear that Lucas Browne is innocent. You know, he has tested positive, tested negative 5 days before the fight, which to me suggests, I mean, why would you use a fat burner the day or two before a fight? To me, that suggests there must be an increased chance of it getting spiked and him being, him being poisoned, if you like. Because surely a fat burner is something you take throughout the training camp, or maybe at the start of training camp to get in shape. So yeah, I'd be more inclined to believe he is innocent. RT says, I suggest anyone who has bought a ticket for Haye's fight get a refund now. The fight's a joke. Cyril says, would love to see Parker. Oh, Cyril, I don't agree with that. That's poor from you. Yeah, that's poor comment. YouTube says, Hatman did a good video on Lucas Browne. I saw that. Yeah, shout out to Hatman, great channel. Mr. Haight says he thinks Browne was spiked. He said his team was partying until the early hours and they had visitors the following day. Mark Broughton says, no joke, came across this whilst watching the Haye press conference. So is it the Mark Broughton I know, or is it a Mark Broughton I don't know? Richard has joined. Gaz said, I hear Team Eubank talking about how hard Junior hits, but I can't recall him actually stopping anyone without a referee jumping in. It is the Mark Broughton I know. Hello, Mr. Broughton. What a surprise to see you here. We will have to exchange a message in real life. Let me just have a look now. Gaz saying, I heard Team Eubank talking about how hard Junior gets hit, but I can't recall him actually stopping anyone without the referee jumping in. Bullet Truth says, I agree, Browne is innocent. Richard says, I think Lucas is innocent for sure. Richard says, sneaky Russens. Jamie said, would Haye be in the conversation of the Britain's greatest fighters if he stayed at cruiserweight? Hard to know with how the cruiserweight division has come on. And Kiwi said, I think he is innocent, too good a guy. Rob says, remember the conversation we had the minute the news broke? Yes, I do actually, Rob. Yeah, about Browne. Yeah, Rob thought he was innocent, and there was a lot of suggestion about it being very controversial circumstances with the situation out in Russia and that side of thing. I think it was it Marius Wok and Duradola who had been supposedly the victim of getting spiked when they were out in Russia fighting on the Povetkin undercard. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting. How do people think the Lucas Browne situation is going to play out then? What do people think will be the resolution to that? I'm not aware that he's currently been banned. I'm not aware that the WBA have stripped him of his world title or anything of that nature. So what I'm keen to know is how do people think that will play out? Will he be? I noticed he hasn't decided to pay for his B sample to be tested. Will the governing bodies decide to keep him on that basis? Be interesting to see. Adrian says Wilder has to be careful. Better by fastest fury is right. Bring your own sealed water. Bullet Truth said, I think unfortunately he may be stripped but not banned. Well, that would be interesting, because I don't see how you could really do one and not the other, because at present, if you're not banning him, then you're suggesting he's not innocent. If you're suggesting he is innocent. So if you're stripping him, you're suggesting that he's guilty. So it's difficult. I mean, maybe there'll have to be a rematch now between Gjergjaj and Lucas Browne. Maybe Lucas Browne's going to have to go back to Chechnya, and if he does, you'll have to assume that he's going to need to win by knockout. Gaz says, when Gjergjaj is mates with the Chechen president, I'm sure you can pull strings. Kiwi says, if we are skeptical, so will the governing bodies be. Rob says, I think the WBA will see something is up. Clean 5 days before, Browne won picking VADA, and in fact insisting on VADA testing. Makes no sense for him to take something in that 5-day period. Yeah, absolutely. And the whole thing about him taking fat burners, you know, the reason that I could see him being guilty for taking fat burners, you know, I get the perception that he could have come into camp, been very, very overweight, been slightly immobile, you know, not being able to move so well, you know, maybe needing to take them. I can understand why you do that. I can't understand why you do that 5 days before a fight when you're already in shape. You know, the purpose of taking them seems to be largely negated. King Dale says, what do you think of Canelo Khan boxing gossip? Hello, Dale. I won't go into it in too much detail, mate, because I've covered it in other videos previously. But yeah, what I would say is I would expect Canelo to win by devastating knockout. Khan's got no defense and no chin. Stepping up in weight against the bigger puncher, going to be very, very, very tough for him. Let's have a look. Bullet Truth says, yeah, fair enough. Rematch in neutral territory for Browne Gjergjaj. Yo Napa says, I keep up with every division from 122 to heavyweight, apart from cruiserweight, and that says a lot. Carl says, these drugs can take several weeks to take effect. Richard says, I think if he can't prove really strong case, they'll strip him and ban him. That would be a massive shame. It would end him. Probably would end him at his age, yeah, to be out of action if it was 2 years. Cheryl, yeah, Cheryl, to be honest, you know, I'm not going to talk about it really because I don't want to go into the comment that you did make, but I think you should be very careful expressing comments like that in public, you know, or on a public platform. I don't think it really reflects very well, and it will get you in trouble quite quickly. Biggie Biggs has got a feeling Wilder is going to KO Povetkin, even though he's not technically as sound. You know, the thing about Povetkin is he showed huge punch resistance to me in the Klitschko fight. You know, I know Tyson Fury said that he showed he was very chinny by persisting in getting knocked down over and over again. I actually thought he showed great punch resistance in the fact he was able to keep getting up and keep fighting on. Tiwi says, Parker fight great for our country, puts us back on the heavyweight map since with our last being Pua. Bullet Truth says, remember this headline, London Olympics were sabotaged by Russians doping. YouTube says, Usyk has pulled out of his fight with Stephen Simmons. Is he ducking the big Scott? Maybe, maybe. Rob says, have you noticed how Team Fury are picking Martin? I certainly have, yeah, certainly have. I wonder, Fury said he's going to help Martin tactically, so I'd be very interested to be a fly on the wall for those conversations. Carl Stevenson says, Brook versus Liam Smith, your thoughts? Frank Warren excited by the fight? I don't see it happening because all the talk about co-promotion, the problem here is broadcaster. You know, both guys would really want it to be on their own broadcaster. They're marquee fighters or close to marquee fighters. How are they going to let them go and fight on the other channel? It's a risky fight for both. I do think Kell Brook is the smarter boxer. Liam Smith's pressure style could bother Kell Brook. I see it as a 50-50 fight. However, I'd probably have a very slight lean to Kell Brook. Richard says, have you had any update on Nick Blackwell? And no is the answer to that. Everything I hear does seem to be positive. Rob says, John Fury thinks that Joshua will win. I think he's right. Team Groves says, taking Clay a week out would be a disadvantage with side effects. However, it can be out of your system in less than a week, so it doesn't 100% clear him, as he may be taken early in his camp also. Fetch by Far says, yeah, I wish it was a bigger arena. Maybe he's talking about New Zealand arenas. Adrian says, Gjergjaj can't travel as he's hepatitis positive. Is that true? Callum says the arena is like 2,000 to 3,000, right? Dale says, boxing gossip, what do you think of David Haye donating 10% of his purse to Nick Blackwell? Again, Dale, I covered that earlier on in this stream. Obviously, it's great that Nick Blackwell is going to get extra money. Part of me think it's David Haye being slightly, looking for the headlines. But, assume positive intent, it's going to aid Nick Blackwell, certainly. Gaz says, I think Povetkin will make Wilder wish he stuck at basketball. Miguel says Manny will KO Bradley in 6. Richard says, in my opinion, Wilder is a decent fighter, but a poor world champion. If there was only one belt, Wilder wouldn't have a sniff. Bullet Truth says, no, Brook is a beast. Callum says, BG, have you seen any of the Robert Easter Jr. at all, fighting on the Browne undercards? I haven't, no. Jim Jones says, Povetkin got embarrassed by Klitschko and he got a gift decision against Huck. Wilder will give him a good beating. Archibald says, I don't think I've ever heard you swear, BG. Or are you going for a PG rating on your channel? Well, that's it, Archie. Yeah, I'm trying to appeal to the masses. No, I'm kidding. Gaz says, what do you think of Brook saying he wants Triple G? I think Brook is a death wish. Thing is, Brook's career is going nowhere. He's 37-0, all 1-0. I heard the Boxing Voice guys say he was 1-0, so he's only had one fight. And that's what the global perspective of him is. He's a world champion, he's a dominant fighter, but he's nowhere near any big fights. And to be honest, I can't see him getting any big fights. There aren't really big fights for him out there at the minute in 147. And the market at 154 means there just aren't big name fighters there for him to take on. So, Triple G is the only realistic big fight that's easily makeable for him, I guess. So I can understand it. Personally, I think 2 weight classes in one go would be too much. It would be too much for him. Dale says, thanks for answering my question, sir. Always an absolute honour. Oh, Dale, you're too kind, Dale. Thanks very much indeed. No, good to speak to you as always. Rob is daring me to say certain profanities. Bullet Truth is saying, do not hate on the Brook. Cyril says that she sincerely apologises for her barbaric comment. Please forgive me. Yes, you're forgiven, Cyril. Bullet Truth says 147. On my Skype is. I might have missed the call. Apologies if I just missed a call from you. My Skype is not working for some reason today. Bullet Truth says USA 147 pounds is scared to travel. Better by far says Martin has only 5,000 Twitter followers and he's reasonably active on it. Yeah. Callum says no big fights. Garcia fight is huge. Yeah, but Garcia's not going to come to England, and I just don't know if Garcia's going to want to fight with Brook. Garcia's doing well for himself on his own route and taking his own fights and going his own path. Does he actually want to fight with Brook? Let's have another look here. Bradley fight is huge. Only Bradley will take the fight. Yeah, Bradley could take the fight. He's got to come through Pacquiao first. Jim Jones says, do you not think Brook Vargas is a big fight? I really don't know. Vargas is not a big name. And would you really class that as a competitive fight? Would you think Vargas has a realistic chance of beating Kell Brook? Not for me. Craig has said that he got that book in the post. Oh, the Ian John Lewis book. Well, Craig, my apologies it took you so long. I let my girlfriend post it, which was my first mistake, because she's got a post office next to her work. And somehow it ended up being delivered back to me a week later because she put the wrong stamps on it and everything. So, apologies for the delay, Craig. Hope you enjoyed the book. Miguel says, will Amagasa win? I need to have more of a look at that against Warrington. I need to do a separate video on that and have a look at it. But I wouldn't rule it out. Let's put it that way. YouTube says Furman must be in semi-retirement. I miss him doing interviews at every opportunity. Richard said Brook's career is being wasted just chasing Khan. Carl says seems a genuine fear of fighting Brook in the UK. Team Grove says I think they will fight for Vargas, like you said. It makes sense. Yeah, Vargas for me is the obvious option. I covered that in my video with Jet the other day. Terence said, where was my Ian John Lewis book? You didn't get one, Terence, because you didn't win the competition, mate. Richard says Brooks versus Vargas, no thanks. Callum says he'll have to go to the US. Rob says Vargas is a good fighter. Yeah, but do you think he's got a chance of beating Brook, Rob? That's the point. It's not competitive. He's not a name. Callum says that Vargas is competitive. He says Vargas is very tough and he's bigger than Brook. I doubt he's bigger than Brook, to be honest. Better by far says, yeah, that was a good listen. Your talk with the ref, Ian John Lewis. Good perspective. Recommend watching to all. Many thanks. Better by far. Yeah, I enjoyed that. Bullet Truth says, people acting like clenbuterol is Jason Statham in Crank. Clenbuterol made Browne super strong. Lol. It gave him no realistic advantage. What I can say is if Browne came into camp very heavy, very overweight, he's the kind of guy who can descend into quite a plodding heavyweight. You know, and in this fight, he was lighter in his feet than I've ever seen him before. He was more mobile than I've seen him before. He was making Lucas Browne miss. So if it helped him to lose vast amounts of fat, then it would enhance his performance. Just having a look now. Richard said, what do you think of Frankie Gavin versus Paulie Malignaggi? Has that fight actually been made? That's the first I've heard of it. I'd probably pick Frankie Gavin at the minute, to be honest. Terence says, send me money. Carl said, Kid Galahad not far away from fighting. What's your opinion on him versus Frampton and Quigg? I need to see what he looks like he's coming back with. You know, based on Quigg's last performance, Galahad versus Quigg could be competitive. Right now, I think Frampton is a level above. Is Time Booth still an active boxer? I don't know. Bullet Truth says not within 5 days. No, not within 5 days. Clenbuterol wouldn't be effective within 5 days. People are saying it stays in your system for a while. So the fact that it was in his system 5 days before, maybe he'd taken it earlier on. Terence says unification is the end game for all real boxing fans. Brook has to fight a belt holder next. Yeah, but Jesse Vargas, you know, I know he's a belt holder, but come on. Like, you know, how was him versus Saddam Ali ever for a world title in the first place? Callum says Brook is 5'9", Vargas is 5'11". Richard says Brook is capable of being a dominant force. Couple of good fights, everyone will want him. Rob says Vargas is definitely bigger than Brook. Dale says boxing gossip. Do you think Brook will ever step up and fight good competition? I think he'll be forced into a corner too, Dale. And I think if he can't get it at 147, he'll have to change weight. So a short answer is yes. You know, he's 30 years old now. He's 37-0. Time is running out. Archie says, not sorry if you've answered this already, but do you think Kell Brook should move up and fight Liam Smith? I do. I think which broadcaster it will be such a big issue for a fight like this. It won't happen though. Like with Eggington versus Skeet, they kind of got over the broadcaster bit. You know, it wasn't so important because the fight wasn't such a big draw. For this, I think it'll be a bigger issue. Richard said Frankie versus Malignaggi, not been made, but I know Frankie wants it. Yeah, I'm sure Frankie does want it. The problem is, does Paulie want it? I doubt he does. It's not the most appealing class, isn't it? Gaz said, I don't think anyone's scared of facing Brook. I think Hearn Khan won't make the fights. I think Hearn can't making the fights is probably more realistic. I don't think he won't make the fights. Bullet Truth says his wish is for Brook v Garcia. Jim Jones says, if you're being harsh on Vargas, his only loss is to a future Hall of Famer. Yeah, true. Maybe I'm overlooking Vargas. Just to me, his performances, I know he looked good in the Saddam Ali fight, but his performances haven't struck me as the kind of guy who could go on and beat a Kell Brook. But maybe I'm wrong. Bullet Truth says, Gaz, people are ducking Brook. Carl Stevenson said, Vlad Delay and Fury fight now. Is he hoping he gets fat and out of shape? Is it really dragging on? You know, there's a lot of theories about this. One of my theories was that it was initially due for the same night as Khan Canelo, I believe. And, you know, obviously they want to leave a bit of gap between that fight and Khan because of the pay-per-view market. Richard said, what do you think of the Shannon Briggs and Eddie Hearn meeting? Real entertaining. And shout out to IFLTV for getting that coverage. It was really good to get a different perspective of what goes on. Better by far says, what two fighters do you think would make the most interesting? Gloves are off. Fury, Haye, two big mouths. I know we've had it before. Anything involving Tyson Fury for me. Obviously, Eubank versus Saunders, that's a great fight as well. Dale Clark says, I agree, boxing gossip. I think Brook has potential, but like you said, is getting tired of fighting average opponents. Nothing against Kevin Bizier. He does get into the ring, but most KO him. Who would you fancy if Jacobs Billy Joe happened? I'd fancy Billy Joe. Yeah, I agree. I'd fancy Billy Joe as well. Bullet Truth wants me to give him a let's go champ. So, okay, let me just compose myself. Let's go champ! Richard said, I think it'd be a welcome addition to the British fight cards. Let's have a look. YouTube said Prince Patel versus Dave Allen would be a good face-off. YouTube says, Rob says, do you think Billy Joe should fight Eubank on a Vlad Fury undercard? No, I don't. I think that's a strange suggestion, actually, Rob. I know Billy Joe keeps mentioning it, but there's not going to be enough money to do those on a single card. You know, Vlad and Fury, you know, it's going to be so much money spent on those two. Billy Joe and Eubank should do a separate event to maximise their full potential. Callum says, no interest in that. I'm done with Billy Joe after the Bursak fight. Garbage. It is a garbage fight, but my personal belief is he's taking it purely as a prep fight. Bullet Truth says, Brook himself said he should retire if he doesn't get a good fight. Troy says, I'm late. Have these been moved to Wednesday? No, to be honest, I've been a bit hit and miss with my days recently because of work and my schedule. So, yeah, don't worry, though. It will be uploaded in about half an hour to an hour's time. Richard says Fury is TV gold. Richard says, am I crazy thinking Billy Joe is capable of outboxing Triple G? It's an interesting fight. You know, it's not impossible that he could do. Billy Joe is, you know, class boxer. Yo Napa said, that's the bossest Let's Go champ I've ever heard. I'm sorry, I can't claim to be as hard as Shannon Briggs, and I'm not going to pretend I am. Rob says, even Billy suggests it in his last video talking about Triple G. What about that? Yeah, I know. I couldn't believe it, Rob. I just thought it was strange from him. I don't think he sat down with Frank and done the maths on that. I think it's a ridiculous suggestion. Better by far says, my favourite Let's Go champ is when Briggs muttered it under his breath mid-conversation. Ralph Moss says, have you heard of the boxer James Bathgate? No. Richard Wiles says, Triple G hasn't fought somebody who moves like Billy Joe. Fair comment. Guys, I'm done. We've done an hour. My voice is killing me. My throat's killing me. I've got a few bits I need to do this evening. Got to go out for a run now. So Triple G beats Brook Terrence. So I've got to go out and get those done. So yeah, thanks again to everyone who's taken the time to tune in. Thanks very much to everyone who's watched tonight and commented. I seem to have had an issue with my Skype tonight. So yeah, do apologise if anyone has tried to call in. I'm sure there hasn't been too much of a deluge. But yeah, thanks very much indeed for everyone who has taken part. Bullet Truth says peace. Terrence says good night. Good night, Terrence. Cheers, better by far. So yeah, thanks a lot to everyone. Hope everyone has a good evening. Please do subscribe to the channel. Please do hit the thumbs up button. Help me broadcast this to a wider audience. Thanks a lot, guys. Speak to you all soon.